What's up, guys? We're live in case you hate football. But as for me, I got it on the background right now. this is this is your football alternative right now. I'm gonna get the share on my pages right now.
Mm-hmm.
Hope everybody's doing swimmingly. And thank you so much for the support. For everything that has come in the past few days from all of you. It's been amazing. I really appreciate it. And of course, for Dennison, and he knows this, I've said a lot to him about it before, but for taking the lead on this, for doing something so kind and so generous and so supportive, I cannot thank him enough. And so it really means a lot. I just want to let all of you know that. And I'm doing great. I've had favorable results from scans I've gotten, and even started treatment the other day, which was immunotherapy. And I feel fantastic. Actually, I mean that sincerely. I actually feel completely normal, and honestly better than I did a week ago, which is probably largely due to much less stress. So, so yeah. Anyway, it's getting tackled, and things are looking very positive. And so I just wanted to let you all know that because so many of you reached out and supported, and I really appreciate it. So, yeah. With that said, we're going to jump in on some exciting topics today. And I'm going to go ahead and start recording, man, because I have to get ready to host company for this Cowboys game tonight.
Yeah, man, do it.
The most important thing on the radar today. So, all right, we're rolling. We got rolling. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Man, we got quite a good episode lined up today, this week. It's contrary to a lot of what you've been hearing about the future of electric vehicles, right? And obviously very politically charged. It's, to me, proof that they can make anything political nowadays. But we're going to talk about how Wyoming is making a move to phase out the sale of electric vehicles by 2035. This is in direct opposition to California's move to phase out the sale of gas-powered vehicles by, I think, the same year, right? It was also 2035?
I think it was 2030.
2030. Okay, yeah, I couldn't
or 5 years earlier.
Now, to set this up a little bit for you guys, state leaders in Wyoming say that their oil and gas sectors are too important to their economy to simply lose out to electric vehicles. Right now, let me tell you something. Wyoming has a population of 578,000 people. Okay, and I don't know of any or very many charging stations / infrastructure in that state. And I don't think they're really at too great of a risk.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Considering any of if there is any truth to that concern, they're probably exporting a lot of that oil and gas anyway, outside of state lines. So it's not like Wyoming's just drilling its own oil and it's not going anywhere. So we got a lot to talk about on this, not just because of the obvious notion to politicize this, but also it does lend itself to an overall discussion that gasoline engines may not be going away entirely. Yeah, a lot of interesting stuff here to break down. And of course, we're going to cover it all. So let's go ahead and get into it. Yeah. Earthquake, multiple earthquakes. All right. Yeah. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. What's going on, everybody? I'm John,
And I'm Dennison.
and this is the catch up. I like how there's just this big, like, Dennison is the man to sky. It's not new. If you're tuning in on the live stream, that's not new facial hair.
No, it's not. It's not.
No, it's actually, it looks like it could just, fit right into the goatee, just pocket right in the goatee.
Yeah, I mean, it's got the perfect shape for it. It's great.
Yeah, but it's actually a microphone, I
Mm-hmm.
think. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I guess
Yeah.
there's no proof on that. but, but yeah. So okay, let's jump into this. So okay, 3, 2, 1. Before we jump into the topic, I want to remind you guys the 3 best ways to support us. Number 1, jump on the live stream with us if you're not already. If you're listening on the audio, it's the best way to connect with us and have the discussion with us in real time. We get to have your feedback and add your comments to the conversation while we discuss it. Plus, you get to see our faces. And so it's a great way for us to connect with you, a great way for us to catch up with you, which is the entire goal of this. And it's free. So we're live streaming on Facebook and on YouTube every Thursday night. This week was delayed due to my birthday, actually. But normally it's every Thursday night we are live. So please tune in with us over there. Just search our podcast title on either of those platforms. You'll find us. The second best way is to leave a rating and review. There are multiple ways you can do this depending on the platform, or even subscribe if you like us. That helps. And it not only helps you connect with us, but it also shows the algorithm that people are reacting to this show, and therefore it helps us get out in front of more potential eye and ear balls. Ear holes, I guess, right? So, and number 3, if you want to support us financially, go to our shop. It is linked wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching. You can, it's still cold outside.
Mm-hmm. It
It's
is.
still cold. And lucky for you, we have beanies, hats, sweatshirts, hoodies, long sleeves, a number of ways to keep warm and represent the Catch Up podcast. So
Mm-hmm.
jump on over there if you want to support us financially. It does cost for us to put this podcast out, and that would help us a lot. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into it, man. So I kind of laid the foundation. Where do you want to take it from here?
You know, I I think we should first go ahead and talk about this ban. Get a little bit more into the meat of the ban itself, and then and also what Wyoming is thinking, what the legislation in Wyoming is thinking, and then I think we can also move on to kind of like what the overall impact that this could be, and then also kind of like what is the future for gas powered engines, because as you alluded to earlier, it may not be the end all be all, the moment that we hit that was it 2030 ban, I think, that the Biden administration put into play uh, to stop the sale of gas powered vehicles. I think it's 2030 or maybe 2035, maybe something like that.
Yeah, well, it wasn't the Biden administration, right? It's
Mm.
states doing it.
Oh, yes.
But it's Oregon, Washington, and California will, yeah, they will ban it by 2035. Yep. So it's all
2035. Okay.
2035. So
So it is
this,
2035.
and
Got it.
not to cut you off, but I think it lends itself even more so to what I was mentioning about that obvious politicization of this topic, in that Wyoming is saying, oh, you're doing that by 2035? Guess what we're going to do by 2035? They could literally ban sales of EVs now, right?
Hmm.
That's the thing. They could ban sales of EVs right now because they don't have the infrastructure. That's the reason the other states are waiting, is so they can build the proper infrastructure for it.
Yep.
So it's literally just a political middle finger to from right to left. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right.
But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, I guess if you don't, I'll go ahead and start kind of talking about. So, it's a bill. So this, just to make sure, it's this is a bill that's being proposed in
Okay.
the Wyoming legislation.
Mhm.
And the reasoning, what they said, that they have behind this is that, um, as you talked about a little bit earlier, the Wyoming exports, or even just is a part of a very big conglomerate when it comes to you in within the United States, um, who are one of the bigger providers of our oil industry, right, or oil and gas industry. And
Mhm.
so, um, I think when I looked at it, I think they're number 5 or something similar to that, for us.
Okay.
Um,
That's interesting. It does make sense. There are, if you've ever driven through Wyoming, there are a ton of drilling sites out there. A
yes,
ton.
yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, ton of refinery. I think they also have a pretty decent amount of refineries too around there.
Hmm.
But so yeah, it's, it is a very big portion of their economy, and I think I will say, I think there is some, like, there can be some concern, right? Because I'm sure there's tons of towns, not just towns, but cities even, who most of the workforce work for oil and gas companies.
Yeah.
And so if that were to essentially stop, right, the end of drilling, the end of just extracting that oil out, or even just surveying for more oil and gas locations, that would greatly impact the overall population base of Wyoming. So I do understand where they're trying to come from.
Sure.
Um,
Well, can I
and
ask you this though?
yeah,
Wouldn't this, in that case, with that said, isn't this more of a symbolic gesture to have people say, hey, this could have a huge effect on our, not just the state's economy, but the country's economy as well, you know?
yeah, yeah, I could say so. I mean, I would say that's very true. Um, I think it can be. I think the way that they're going about it is a little bit more pushing, as a little bit more than, I think, a symbolic gesture. But yeah, I can see it also being that. Um, And so, yeah, their biggest concern is that, the switch to electricity or electric vehicles is going to cause more problems. When in so this is me going into more of an opinionated portion, right?
Hmm.
I feel like the problem with the ban is that they also stated in the bill that, or one of the reasons that they stated, is that there's not that big of an infrastructure when it comes to electric vehicles, and so it would be also affecting their population. Which, for me, I always thought that that's kind of hilarious, because it's you can invest in that, you can invest in that infrastructure yourself and
Exactly.
fix that issue. It's not like it's a problem that's just not going to be fixed.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
And quite honestly, is an issue that should be addressed, both from
mhm.
that and the infrastructure side of things. I mean, we're becoming more and more reliant on electricity with or without cars anyway, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
So our infrastructure is dramatically lacking behind as it stands right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, our electrical grid is something that is a much more aging piece of technology that we have, that we are, for the most part, I would say, are still very much patching rather than actually upgrading our grid.
I
A
agree.
lot of it is, cost savings, as well as some prioritization, which, I think in the future, as we do start to slowly switch ourselves over to more electric vehicles, or even what we're going to talk about a little bit later,
Mhm.
even other alternatives, I think uh, it is still something that's going to be very important. And
You
so I think the this bill, the potential of this bill, is more of a. I think the problem with it is that it feels, again, like a band-aid, kind of like what we've already been doing for many years already. It's a band-aid to not fix the actual issue, which would be, okay, cool. If we're going to start transitioning over to electricity, or if we're going to start transitioning to other fuels outside of regular fossil fuels that we have, maybe we should start trying to start the process of retooling our workforce so that
Mhm.
way they're not greatly affected.
Sure. I think that is a major key to it. But would you say too that, I mean, and I think this will lend itself well to where we're going to go with this discussion as well. But I think that there is a large incentive financially for um, states, and governments that are embedded with big oil, to
Hmm.
not stray away from that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not only are you going to have to spend money on the infrastructure change, the training of the workforce, this and that, but you're also going to inherently lose money from the oil companies that you were partnering with, right?
Yeah, yeah, but I will say that there are becoming more and more subsidies that are getting pushed out by via the federal government to start the process of that, moving to more renewable energy sources, as well as other alternative fuels than fossil fuels that we have. So,
Mhm.
you know, I feel like it's already starting to kind of change, or the
Yeah.
tide of this is already starting to change to where it's starting to become less profitable. And we've already seen in some cases, I think Exxon is one of them, where a lot of these oil companies have already started the process of investing more into renewable energies. Uh, um to get outside of the fossil fuels, diversify themselves so that way they understand how to sustain, or how to transition themselves easier, right?
Mm.
So, I feel like the problem with this is that you kind of inadvertently, if everyone continues the process, the push to switch, you
Mhm.
end up kind of shooting yourself in the foot um, because you're not moving with the change. You're going to stay with something that you feel is good for right now, but by the time that, say, this ban rolls around, or the proposed ban, right, rolls around, maybe you're now in the on the back foot
Yeah.
because you're staying on stuff where everyone else has already transitioned. And now you're losing out on subsidies, you're losing out on stuff, and it's going to just be much a bigger, or I should say a harder push for you to essentially catch up.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, so I saw this article and I'm trying to remember the details. Maybe somebody in the chat can let us know if they've seen it as well. But it was discussing how Exxon and those type of companies are basically, it's kind of a facade that they're investigating this, or I'm sorry, investing in these renewable energies, because
Mm,
the amount of money that they're putting into it is, they're getting some level of kickback on it, but it's not anywhere close to comparison the money that they're putting into oil and research on where those next oil pools are and all that kind of stuff.
okay.
Yeah, and I believe that, and I don't think that. I mean, certainly it would um, benefit them to invest in that, but that's also huge redesigns of their company structure, and they
Oh
have
yeah.
the power to do it. If anybody does, it's these multi-billion-dollar oil conglomerates, of course,
Yeah.
but they're choosing not to because their money is in oil, right? I mean, Exxon could have single-handedly, which here's a I know I'm kind of bouncing around, but this is my thought.
No.
Our infrastructure in this country could be completely redone. This would also be the most American thing, too. And I mean that this would be the most capitalist kind of thing.
Mhm.
But the only way our infrastructure is going to be completely transformed is if it's privatized.
Yeah.
And that would be up to a company like Exxon or Chevron, right? To make that transition for their business model, and then therefore supplying the power for these, like, electric grids and all that kind of stuff. I don't want
Yeah.
to say the only way, but as much of a Shakespearean event as our Congress is right now, they're just going to oppose everything the other side is for, no matter what it is. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. You're right. I mean, we can even go to look at like when it comes to EV charging, right? Who has actually built the EV charging infrastructure that we have right now? Privatized companies. It's
Mm-hmm.
not the federal government
Yeah.
who is really pushed to do that. Sure, there are some out there somewhere. Um, but yeah, most of them are very much the privatized companies who are going out and creating this network of electrical vehicle charging, and they're probably one of the biggest ones who are pioneering some of that, right? And
Yep.
it's the same thing with space travel, right? The
Mm-hmm.
reason why we have it feels not the same, right, as it was in say the 60s, but we have actually advanced quite a bit when it comes to just space travel in general, as well as rocket technology and all sorts of stuff, because you have these private companies who are able to invest far more, um, and be able to invent and at a faster rate
Mm-hmm.
than our government would, right?
Oh,
Because
I
there's
know.
no incentive, at least currently, for our government to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually saved our government more money to do it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that when it comes to these states that are saying let's ban the sale of gas powered vehicles by 2035, it not only is a self provided incentive for them
Hmm.
to invest in infrastructure and all that. These are Washington, Oregon, and California. All of them are states that were early. Their people were early adopters for electric vehicles because of the incentives that they provided, because of the fact that people care about the environment out there, you know, and the state cares about the environment,
Yep.
especially in California. So, I it doesn't surprise me that that's where that's happening. And I don't know. I think, to be honest with you, it all feels kind of like a facade, even on that standpoint, because the market is already moving toward electric vehicles anyway.
Yeah.
And so really to say, well, you're not going to be allowed to sell electric vehicles in this state. Well, okay. I mean, they were already phasing them out anyway. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Hmm.
So, and trust me, I don't think California is the reason that they're phasing them out. It is a large economy, even of itself, but there's not only 49 other states, but there's also all of the European Union. There's China, which is
Hmm.
massive. There's Japan. Like, there are other players than just California. So I think a lot of people that get upset about this look at really just this much of the picture, very small amount, and say, well, California is the reason we're all going to drive electric vehicle. No, man. No.
Yeah, it's
It's a
it's the
global economy.
world's transit. Yeah, exactly. It's a global adoption.
Yeah.
And I guess this is one thing that I do want to say. Um, just for full disclosure as well, especially because this is a topic that um, is about electric vehicle infrastructure as well as stuff like that. I do now work for a electric vehicle manufacturer. Um, and so that is also the reason why I've moved. But I wanted to put that out there so that way you know that there's no bias. All of the thoughts that I am saying, all of my opinions and stuff like that are still my own. It's
Hmm.
just, you know, I just so happen to currently work for an electric vehicle manufacturer. So
Hmm.
there is some sort of stake there. But I did want to just preface that by saying, or I wanted to make sure that I put that out there.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. And, I mean, I just try to look at it from both sides. And I think, it is an interesting thing to try and say, hey, let's stop all this push for electric and think about the economy, right? Or think about
Mhm.
our economy, like Wyoming's trying to do. But again, this is different between the private entities and the government, right? And so
Mhm.
it's classic case of a lot of legislation that you see in America of too little, too late, because incentives have been given for this type of development for years and years and years. And now that it's actually taking place, all of a sudden a state like Wyoming is going to say, "Whoa, hold it! Not in our state, you're not." you know,
Yeah,
I'm.
exactly.
You know what? If I lived in Wyoming, I'm just going to drive, and I want an electric car. I'm just going to drive across state lines and buy one, come back.
Yeah.
You know. So I don't know. I think it starts to get into gray areas too, which I thought this with the California thing too, of dictating what can and can't be sold when it's not a danger to. Well, I guess that actually I was about to say when it's not a danger to public health, but that is where the gray area lies because
Yep.
some attorneys, some lawmakers argue that global warming is a danger to public health because it is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
I mean, yeah,
yeah,
we're already seeing the effects of it, right? So
yeah. So it actually would be more controversial on the side of Wyoming to me because you can't argue that the sale of electric vehicles is bad for public health. No more so
yeah.
than gas powered vehicles are. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I
So
guess, well, I'm sure there's tons of arguments when it comes to electric vehicles on like what is, but I think you're right still though. You can't say that it's any more hazardous than gas powered vehicles.
right, right, exactly. So let's talk about this for a second. I think that we're not inherently done with gas powered vehicles.
Mhm.
I think there is a push for them to stick around, obviously beyond what just Wyoming is doing. And we've talked about this before, where this could potentially be a stopgap for perhaps carbon neutral fuels, alternative fuels, hydrogen fuels.
Mhm.
And I think that there is still a potential for that. But I will say, one of the biggest things to me is Formula One. I've talked with Denison about this. This is big news, though. And that's what is great about Formula One. It's not big news for just Formula One, it's big news for the world, And
Mhm.
uh, so Michael Andretti, who's the son of Mario Andretti, probably the most famous race car driver of all time, um, is wanting to start an F1 team, and they've partnered with General Motors to enter into F1. Now, I also heard a rumor that Ford is considering doing this too, which is equally as big, right?
Yeah.
But for General Motors, they're going to put Cadillac. They're going to make it the Cadillac brand. Um, And the first year, they are going to run a Renault engine because Renault already develops engines for F1. But the expectation is that in 2026, when the rules change, they're going to start developing their own engines as well. So it'll be American drivers, an American team, an American car manufacturer, and an American engine, which is cool. That's especially from the standpoint of General Motors. They've never been involved in F1 before. But the thing about F1 is they're pushing for carbon net zero by 2030. They're still going to run gas powered engines, but they're going to be clean. They're going to be efficient, both energy wise and fuel wise. They've done a number of things so that every race that they do will not have any impact on the environment whatsoever, whether it's an actual race course or a street circuit, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And the fact that a company like General Motors is getting involved at this time when there's an active initiative like that in the biggest form of racing in the world, that tells me that General Motors is not doing away with gas powered engines yet.
Yeah.
Why else
Yep.
would they do that? If all of their investment is in electric,
Yep.
why would they want to get involved in F1? There,
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
in
You're
the same
spending millions of dollars.
exact millions of dollars. Absolutely. And that's the same deal with Ford if that ends up becoming true as well. But to me, that is huge news. And I kind of want to know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, no, I think it is huge news. I mean, like you said, it's a huge news not just for F1, but for the automotive industry in general and really the world, because they're having moving towards alternative fuels or net zero fuels is a really big a really big step, right? Because what it does is, because we already know, and we've already talked about this on many different podcast episodes that we've had.
Hmm.
um EV vehicles have are great, but they also have their limitations, right?
Yeah.
um and same with hydrogen vehicles, and one of the biggest limitations right now is just the sheer expense, right? And both of them, I feel like, suffer from that problem, and it's not an easy problem to fix. It's not something that's going to make the price go down super. There's not going to, unless there's just a very big change in material science, there's just a certain things that just aren't possible for you to fully get over. And price is one of those things that's going to take a long time to come down to a level, right? So really what you have to think about is, especially if you do have the global effort of essentially ending the power of gas powered, or ending the era of gas powered vehicles, that but that's just, I should really say, ending the sale, just to be more specific.
Right.
Um, you still have to worry about, and we're trying to also make sure that we lower the carbon emissions that we have currently, getting it to where we're not producing any more carbon that we're putting into the atmosphere. And then we're also able to slowly decrease the amount of carbon, or I should say carbon dioxide, that's in the atmosphere, and greenhouse gases that are in the atmosphere. um, with all that being said, there has to be something for the million, well, really at this point, I guess billion plus vehicles that we have out on the road, and that will probably be continue to be on the road even past these bans or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
And so the invention of these alternative fuel sources that will allow a ICE vehicle, or an internal combustion vehicle, to be able to continue to run, but
Hmm.
also put out no emissions, is extremely important. Um, and it also changes the narrative for ICE vehicles, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't become something like, oh, you're driving this, you know, I'm saying, say 10 years in the future, right? It doesn't become a nice vehicle, doesn't become, oh, I'm driving this just because I'm polluting, right? Uh
Right.
I mean, I feel like, eventually it will probably get to that kind of thought process, but now you can show that narrative of, I'm driving this, and it's just like driving, an electric vehicle or a
Yeah.
hybrid vehicle or whatever
Mhm.
like that, and it has its own experiences and stuff like that.
Yeah. So you have a push in F1 after they reach this carbon net zero. The discussion is that they will likely start pushing testing of alternative fuels,
Mhm,
non-fossil fuels or things like that. And you might be wondering, if you're not familiar with the sport at all, you might be wondering, well, why? Why aren't they going electric? Well, there's already an electric series, Formula E. So
mhm.
F1 is still the premier, and it's more popular than perhaps it ever has been. And they're drawing in Porsche, which is owned by Volkswagen Automotive, or Volkswagen Motor Group, right?
Mhm.
Is it
Yeah, it's
VMG?
Volkswagen Motor Group
Okay,
technically.
that's smart. Rather than Volkswagen Automotive, right?
Yep.
So, um, and you're drawing in Porsche, uh, which so the Volkswagen is one of the largest car manufacturers in the world as well. I think it's
Mhm.
I would have to look, but I believe it's Toyota, General Motors, and then Volkswagen, and then Ford, I think.
I thought Stellantis
Oh, Stellantis might be up there
had
too.
had because, essentially Stellantis absorbed Fiat, right? Or or in all of the
Mhm.
companies that were a part of it. So, and Fiat was
Yeah.
also had one of, was also a very big corporate or
Mhm.
big company with tons of automotive brands under it.
Yeah. Um, absolutely. So, oh, here we go though. Toyota's number one.
Mm,
Volkswagen's number two.
okay.
Um, according to this, and then Daimler, and which would be
Be
update for
Mercedes.
Stellantis. It'd be Stellantis.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. Stellantis. Okay, got it.
yeah, I think so. And then Ford, Honda, and then GM,
Got
according
it.
to carlogos.org. So we'll take that for what it's worth here. But yes. Oh, here. Sorry. Let's jump back here. Real list is Volkswagen, according to this, is number one, then
Mm,
Toyota, then Stellantis, Mercedes, Ford, and then General Motors. So, anyway, point is, the biggest auto manufacturers in the world are going to become a part of this. Renault is already a part of this. This is something they've done for decades and decades. Yeah, I mean, Renault has been a part of F1 for a long time.
hmm.
Um, and then Mercedes has been there for a while too, but still, and then Ferrari, and yeah, those are the, and then Red Bull has their power plants too. But Red Bull is partnered with Honda, so even on
Hmm.
some level, Honda is involved in this too. So you have the biggest auto manufacturers in the world. If you add General Motors, if you add Porsche, and if Ford ends up actually becoming involved as well, you have the biggest auto manufacturers in the world jumping into this at a time where they're looking to become carbon net zero and potentially test new fuels. That to me tells you all you need to know about the future of the automotive industry.
Yeah.
That this is an effort to meet EPA regulations, an effort to, um, also help the environment, I would imagine. But there is a trend right now to buy electric and all that kind of stuff. And there's
Mm.
incentives as well. So it's financial sense, but I don't think it's long term. What do you think uh, this means? So also, I wanted to mention this too, actually, real quick. You're getting a chance to test your technology and your answers on this, right?
Yep.
Um, and for this, like how to create more efficient combustion engines on a global stage with free advertisement. Well, not free advertisement, but at that point, you're getting advertisement for your company in a sport. What
Yeah.
do you think the answer for this is? In the long run, will there be perhaps a Chevy Malibu that they sell a EV model and they sell a combustion engine model? And maybe the EV model is geared towards people who just live in the city and only drive in the city,
Hmm.
and then the engine is geared towards people who go on long trips. I don't know. What do you think?
That's a good question. I would probably say that I can fully see it to where, yeah, the EV models are mainly for city driving, maybe for more normal like commuting and stuff like that. And then I could actually see these alternative fuels, yeah, for being like for long haul trips, but also I could see it for a great big alternative fuel source for our transportation industry, right?
Mm,
Because it's already right. We already know it's already kind of expensive for just and when I mean transportation, I don't just mean like buses, but I also mean like big, freighters, shipping freighters. There's also the trucking industry. So I think this would be a great way to do it instead of having to transition them over to say something like a hybrid powertrain or an electric vehicle powertrain, where some ways those fuel sources or energy sources, I guess I should really specify it as, aren't particularly great for those. types of industries. Now, of course, there can be big changes as we continue to grow our innovation within hybrid powertrains as well as electric vehicle powertrains. But at least currently, right? I don't foresee us getting to a point to where we can make it super duper efficient to where those industries can easily adopt them without incurring a huge cost. So I can see these alternative fuel sources as well as alternative engines to be able to almost be easily transplanted into the current infrastructure that we have for our transportation industry and be able to use that as effectively as possible, right? Because I think another thing that we don't even think about when it comes to transportation is like our jet fleet, right? So commercial airlines or even
Yes.
shipping um, when it comes to air transportation.
Mhm.
Um, I think those would be ones that would also benefit very heavily from that because we already know that electric vehicle or electric kind of air transportation is become a very challenging thing just because of the weight of what is needed for like batteries or whatever like that. And hybrid system or hydrogen systems also kind of suffer from something similar to that, especially when you're going at higher altitudes and a lot faster. So having an alternative fuel source, alternative types of engines that are able to intake these fuel sources, I think would be a really big help and a really big way to make it to where we can really get close to that net zero footprint and just
Yes,
in general.
I agree, and I think that if you have um, electric, short range planes, all electric public transit, electric appliances or outdoor equipment like mowers, blowers, all those kinds of things. That already makes a huge impact. And I think we focus on the consumer side of things for this debate, for this discussion, not you and me, but nationally, that's what we focus on.
Hmm.
And I think it's a little misplaced because if we really wanted to make a huge impact and we wanted to make it quickly, those are the sectors we can make it in, or for public transit,
Hmm.
cargo, freight. Obviously, freight is pretty clean, but um, for the most part, it could always be cleaner. But it's diesel
Yep.
electric. Those are the OG hybrids right
Yep.
there.
Yep.
You know, and
But it can
so
reduce complexity, right?
yeah, exactly. And I wanted to mention too. I think I may have overlooked this, and it's a worthwhile discussion to have too. I think that if you look at the F1 engines, they're V6 turbo hybrids.
Hmm.
Maybe there's a chance that it's not only going to be gas powered, but it will be a hybrid. Maybe that's the goal of these car manufacturers is to do hybrid. And maybe it's much like how the RAV4 Prime works, where it's battery powered until it needs charge, and then the gas engine comes on.
Yep. Exactly. Gas engine turns essentially into like a generator.
A generator. And then with that technology, you're running clean all the time. Maybe that's the goal. And maybe
Yeah.
that's how they want to extend range.
Yep.
Um, I don't know. There's a number of possibilities here. And yeah, it's very interesting to think that we really aren't done with gasoline yet, or
Oh
at
yeah.
least a combustion engine, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think there was an article a few months back where Mazda had said that they essentially used an alternative fuel that was supposed to be like a net zero fuel, right? And they put it in one of their, I think it was a Mazda Miata, and they drove something like 1,000 miles on that fuel, and even drove around a track.
Did they
um,
have to alter anything with the engine or no?
No, no, that was the biggest thing that they didn't actually have to alter anything with the engine. It was something that they
Uh,
could put directly into the engine and it weren't and ran perfectly fine. Now, of course, I don't think they released a huge amount of facts or information about it, so we still don't know a lot, but that was something that they really were pushing. And we know that Mazda has been probably one of the biggest manufacturers that I would say has been kind of more hesitant when it came to electric vehicles.
Hmm.
Um, and they've been really pushing on trying to create just regular gas powered vehicles that are incredibly efficient. I think it was their X Drive, I think they called it, a few years back when they created it. Was a very super, super clean diesel engine. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, I think there's just a ton that can be done. I think it's just we haven't really put our heads to it, right?
absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of options here, man. And I think it's really cool to hypothesize about. We want to know what your thoughts are too. We want to know, excuse me, what you think about this whole discussion. What you think about the future of electric vehicles, electric power in place of combustion engines, and what you think about the future of combustion engines as well.
Hmm.
Let us know in the comments or in your review of our episode. That helps us a lot to know how we're doing. It helps us continue to grow as well. Um, yeah, I think we had a good discussion on this, man. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, no, I think we covered everything. I think I think really and truly, the future is bright. I think um, all this is, I think a lot of the environmental talk that has happened has just kind of opened us up to multiple or like different ways that we can learn to properly view transportation, I guess, in some ways,
Yeah,
right? There are multiple ways to do transportation, and I think electric vehicles are just the start. Hydrogen vehicles are just the start. Alternative fuels are just the start. And so I think as we continue to grow and invest in that and these bands and stuff like that, that have been pushed not just from the American standpoint, but also other company or other countries around the globe. I think we
mhm,
really have an opportunity to see vehicles that we've never seen before, right? I mean,
yeah,
there's already two companies right now, I think, that are already pushing solar powered vehicles, not fully solar powered, right? They're EVs, but they're assisted with solar power, and they seem to be very promising. So
yeah,
I'm incredibly excited. I think as an automotive enthusiast, I think there's tons of things to be excited for
mhm.
in the coming really 10 years, for now. Yeah.
I agree. And yeah, the solar is going to be amazing as well. And you could even help assist that with wind, just absorbing the wind
Yeah.
as you're going down the road too. There's a lot of possibilities, man. Um, well, I'm glad we discussed this. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let us know in the comments, leave a rate and review, give us a like. And thank you so much for catching up with us. We'll catch up with you next week.